Well, look what I was trying. Look what it says in the margins. Cliche warning: how to balance simple robot, dry speaking, but not too dull familiar. Rewrite language.
Oh, hey, friends.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Hugh Park,
I'm Will Aronson.
the writers of Maybe Happy Ending. We're going to Barney Building, which is part of NYU campus, and they host mainly studio art major students, which I graduated from. I'm gonna be super nostalgic because it's been like, what, 13 years, 14 years since I graduated. Yeah, since I graduated, and literally the first time I'm coming back here.
I was at the theater writing program, and Hugh and I used to work here. We used to work here when the students had gone home. We would sit at his little desk.
We actually spent a lot of time in this building together, right? You visited here, yeah, a lot. We're just like working on our first show, and it was kind of interesting to be an art major, visual art major, but also secretly being a playwright. So I majored in creative writing in Korea, but I also wanted to study visual art. So that's why I moved here, and I was a studio art major doing sculpture, things like sculpture and painting and photography and video arts. But at the same time, we started to work on our first musical, which was Bungee Jump. So luckily, I got to have a small studio in this building on this floor. So Will and I, after the classes, we would come visit me in my studio, and then we would work on our first show. So we spent a lot of time here.
Yeah, the relationship between visual art and creative writing. Hugh Park.
I guess I was just, young and ambitious. I just wanted to study as much as I, could. Also, during my senior year here in the program, as an international student, I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to stay in the country when I graduate from the school? So at the time, my idea was if I become a full-time playwright, I'm not gonna make any money. Also, I'm graduating with this visual art degree, so I'm gonna probably work as a designer, graphic designer. That's gonna be my day job.
But can I just say that all the short stories that Hugh shared with me when we first started working together were very visual. They all had very strong visual components in them. Little like items or icons or sort of climaxing in like very visual scenes. I mean, I would say he expressed emotions through visuals, even more so than dialogue, I felt.
For example,
So I think there's a link there deep inside Hugh Park.
those visual items in Maybe Happy Ending, like Firefly jar or paper cup, phones,
Hwabun.
Hwabun. I felt like even in our first show, Bungee, we were always trying to come up with something like that. Or even in my short stories that I wrote back in Korea during those creative writing, major years, I was always into like coming up with some sort of like, object that can be kind of visual.
Yeah.
Also, we both loved, when I was studying here, we both loved visual artists that do sort of like a narrative work. What was her name? The French one.
Sophie Cao.
Yeah, Sophie Cao, who's a very famous visual artist, but she always does sort of like a narrative, project.
Yeah, there's a lot of
For example,
text
like
in her
following a stranger on the street and then like creating a narrative out of it.
Yeah.
And eventually making a photography book. I was always into that kind of work. So like a mixture of, narrative and visual art.
Yeah.
That's what I was exploring on top of actually writing our first show. So I had kind of like a miniature, like, identity crisis too. When I was in this program, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, what do I want to do eventually? But writing was always sort of like the basis, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Creative writing, which covers both, writing fiction, writing plays, writing for theater, also poetry. That's what I did in Korea.
And I studied playwriting and book writing as part of the graduate musical theater writing program at Tisch, the GMTWP for short. Undergrad, I ended up majoring in music. I studied a lot of different things in undergrad. I say that Hugh is the visionary. That's always what I say. Just that Hugh, I can say a few things. I think Hugh has the taste. I think he has the vision, the overall idea of like, what's a good sandbox to be playing in? Because there's a lot of sandboxes and I'm like, that's a fun, oh, look at that sandbox. Oh, look at that sandbox. And it'll be like, let's go to this sandbox because this sandbox, is cooler than that other sandbox or something like that. I think that Hugh often has a sense of what is going to be the best fit for us because, right, we have to join our sensibilities and certain projects are going to be a better fit. Also, what might be relevant to other people, because at the end of the day, we are trying to communicate and express our emotions and ideas to other people. And I think Hugh often has a better sense of if we play over here, other people have more likelihood of actually connecting with it.
I mean, we are both multidisciplinary and multicultural in many ways because you get to spend so much time outside this country and you speak Korean very well. As an immigrant artist, I guess I'm more curious, like, is this gonna work for this type of audience?
Yeah.
Is this gonna like culturally accepted well or not?
Yeah, connect with people, yeah.
Connected well with connecting with people or not here, so that's what I meant by
Yeah, I think that's a
yeah.
great point. Curious about that audience link.
Coming back to this space really makes me think of how we start or why we start to work together. Other than anything, I just got so excited about talking to you about like any type of arts that makes sense. Like we both were really big fans of people like Miranda July and people like Sophie Calle, and or even we would go to see Jenny Holzer's new exhibition. We're just like in love with just like absorbing anything that this city could I don't know provide us.
Yeah.
And that really became the foundation of our collaboration in terms of, okay, I know what Will would like, and I want to make something like that with him. Like that was really the beginning of our collaboration. And even as a playwright, I always thought of, like how you would respond to my ideas first, especially during those years, because we're still so like building up our, so like a foundation as a collaborators.
This was like the holy document. You can see it's much weathered, more weathered than anything else. This is September 4th, 2014. This was that first treatment bureau. That's why it's all yellow, because we kept getting it out to use as our little Bible. Yeah, and so it was just the first treatment. It had little snatches of dialogue, such as, well, so he has his LP player as his alarm. He goes through his morning routine as a shut-in. His one emotional attachment is his plant, Hwabun. He thinks everything he needs is in his room. He's very proud of the work he did for humans, idolizes them. Hello, who is it? I'm Claire. I live across the hall. My charger's broken. Hello, who is it? I'm Claire. I live across the hall. Can I use your charger? I don't have a charger. Aren't you also a helper bot? Hello, who is it?
When you're reading through the script, who plays Claire?
We always kind of
Switch it up.
Yeah, switch it up.
We have the Terminator scene is in here. So they go to the Love Motel. He's trying to do his acting. Clerk doesn't care because he assumes they're lying because of course he's used to that. They first watch porn, right? By accident, because it's on the TV because they're in a Love Motel. That is in the current Korean version of the show. But then, this is the best part. Plant sings, definitely not in love. And at the end of the motel scene, leaves make hearts. Hwabun had a number and we cut it.
But even back then, we were like, but how are we going to do this, right?
Right.
As we were writing, it was like, oh, we're not the director. Let's just, write it for now.
I'd say we're in love. Clearly, this is a bad idea. We should have started sooner. Okay, we should have started sooner, but we didn't. So yes, let's not do this. But this thing humans do, kissing, let's try that out. And then we'll stop being in love. Song, and then we'll stop being in love. Now, I guess then I can let you go, right? Hwabun is turning brown. Oliver realizes how worried he is about that. He can imagine how he'll feel about Claire. That's not in the show anymore.
Nope.
Beautiful.
Claire sees the firefly wearing down. Autumn has arrived. They never realized how sad autumn is. Oh, that is not in this version of it, I guess. I should have listened to you, referring to the promise, because the promise is in the treatment. It's not your fault. We need to undo this. How? Restore factory settings. Initialize dip. Why did we love? Song returns? Question mark. Final conversation. She sets Firefly free. They go to their rooms. Then he wakes up again like at the beginning. Oh, but this has the controversial, the first treatment says Oliver says something to Hwabun that gives him away. In parentheses, don't tell her, okay? Band reprises Why Do We Love? It's Worth Pain. Near the end of the song, Oliver goes into the room. What does he have, multiple rooms? Claire gives a shh symbol to the plant. So in the first treatment, Claire did not erase. 이렇게 참 오랫동안 떨어져 있게 될 줄은 정말 몰랐다고. That hasn't changed.
No, it's still the same.
But I think the very end of the show is different. Yeah. In the first cry out. Goodbye My Room is there.
It's the same.
안녕 내 방 고마웠어 그동안 혼자인 나 따뜻하게 지켜준 내 방.
This is still one of my favorite songs in the show.
Great lyrics. So dummy lyrics can be a bunch of different things. There's two different types that we use. One is when writing the script, we'll just write an idea of what the song's going to be about. So it's like fake lyrics of what he might be talking about. So that's what this is. To me, every day is special. My room is full of things that make it special. The sunlight goes across my wall. My plant is greener. It's a special day, right? So then the other type of dummy lyric is when I prepare music sketches to run by Hugh. I just say gibberish lyrics with the music. And those are on the other end of the spectrum. They make like no sense, don't fit the situation at all.
So as a playwright, Will has a great sensibility of storytelling. He used to be a camp counselor, so he used to tell stories to little children. And he knows how to just like keep like moving on without any like unnecessarily lingering, like moments or something like that. And that's very helpful because I tend to get kind of like indulgent when I write a scene or when I write dialogue with you. Like, this is maybe my Korean sensibility, like, kicking in, but like, let's make it more poetic. Let's make it more like emotional. And then let's just like,
Savor the moment.
right. Just enjoy this moment a little longer. But, you're always like, no, we got to keep moving.
Well, I think you want to find a good balance, right?
Right. Or sometimes it can work, the other way around. But yeah, that's something that I really admire about, you as a writer.
We tended to be involved with stories that presented kind of odd challenges, and with a maybe happy ending, we're trying to write about really their relationship. These people who are isolated, taking the risk of making a connection and then learning both the sort of the highs and lows of being attached to someone and losing them. And we have sort of a journey that they take together, which is supposed to be the thing that brings them together. But that is completed 2/3 of the way through the story, and then you have the rest of their relationship. And that was always a huge struggle of, can we pull this off where the middle third, the sort of long middle third, is the trip? If we set up that first half hour well enough where it's all in their rooms and setting up their relationship, can we earn this last section, which is playing out of that relationship over time? But that's always presented a real structural challenge that we tried to address in writing the show. So I don't know, that's one thought that comes to mind, is we're oddly attracted to stories that are not quite fitting into the classic, like, you get the goal, you pursue it, and then at the climax, you either get it or you don't. That's buried in the stories you write, but they're not quite as obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do we want to talk about a major playwriting award?
We won this award for our show called Il Tenore, which is a show that we wrote after Maybe Happy Ending. And actually, we came up with the idea for Il Tenore first, and then Maybe Happy Ending. So
Hugh came up with it. He's being modest.
I never even dreamed of winning that award, actually, because perception of that award is, in general, it's like you have to be the serious writer. You have to be the serious playwright. Normally writes about politics or something like that. So I was like, I don't think I have that kind of vision. So yeah, it was really humbling moment when we accepted that award. Will is the first non-Korean playwright to win that award.
Oh.
And they first reached out to me only, like telling me that, oh, you won the awards. I was like, that I co-wrote the book with Will. And then they were like, but we never given that award to non-Korean writers. So I was like, well, this might be the first time.
Thank you, Hugh.
And then they decided to do that. Yeah, you were the first foreign writer winning that award, and then we were the first writing team winning that award. So that was very exciting. We know each other so well as songwriters, so we know the style of music that we would like to write for any stories. So yeah, coming up with good story is always the first and by far the most important thing, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Would y'all work in this space?
This space?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, I didn't have a life. I was just like staying in this building until like 10 p.m. Or midnight until they would kick me out.
Right, we would get together.
Yeah, Will would just like, I would invite him. I would have to like sign him up, at the desk, at the security desk, and then
We would just sit here going over this script, either writing scenes or revising scenes or cutting things. Yeah. In high school, I got into these Kurosawa movies, and I felt like, I think a lot of American directors also, the generation of filmmakers I grew up on in America were all inspired by Akira Kurosawa. So of course, as a high school kid, I was like, who is Kurosawa and why is he inspiring George Lucas and Steven Spielberg? And fell in love with you know, a lot of those movies, Seven Samurai, well, Rashomon, High and Low. And so that was an early influence and still is an influence. I mean, I go back to Kurosawa like all the time.
Right. Yeah, you got me interested in Kurosawa movies as well, which is kind of ironic because I'm from Korea, which is a lot closer to Japan. We had, you know, some common names, you know, even when we met for the first time, like we both loved when we were younger, you know, film directors like Wong Kar-wai. And for me, like, you know, writers like Haruki Murakami was a big inspiration. That's where my kind of like, you know, sensibility comes from. So it was exciting to, you know, get to know you. And then we were so like finding the common ground, also at the same time exploring, introducing like the different artists to each other.
Well, people think I'm a lot like Oliver. And I think what I have in common with Oliver is I love to recite facts about the things I'm excited about. But other than that, I don't have that much in common with Oliver, actually. And I think Hugh has more in common with Oliver.
Well, but also James, that I never want to leave my room. Because Oliver got it from James.
That's right.
I love Jeju.
You love talking to your plants. You like looking out the window, but not going out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Which character was most challenging to write?
I think all of them are equally. I mean, we added the backstories of Claire's former owners kind of at the end, right?
Yeah, so that was challenging.
Yeah, and then we had such little stage time that we could give to them, to the characters. Claire's
That's right.
former
And
owners.
I remember they used to have more flashbacks.
Right,
We then
right.
tried to compress. We had written several flashbacks for them and ended up compressing it all down to 2, basically.
Yeah.
And I remember that was a real jigsaw puzzle, being like, keep having to sort of reinvent the scene to get all the beats we wanted in and all the information about their class difference, all these different things that ended up having to happen in like just a few lines. I remember was a challenge.
Those lines had to be the most kind of like an economical.
Is James Choi a good guy and or dad?
Those are really good questions that we have been avoiding to answer in Korea because we didn't want to give anything too specific. We kind of wanted to leave it to the audience imagination to a certain degree.
Well, but I have a very different answer, which is who can judge if someone's good?
Yeah,
You know, meaning like
relate to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I find him relatable, not always admirable, but
Like, do
Is he
you
a good
do you
person?
think you're a good person? Like, do I think like I'm a good person? I feel like it's the
That's
same
what I-
question. You know, like know, I think James is just like everyone else, just like
like everyone
me.
doing his best.
Yeah, they have. He has his flaws, but he has like nice quality too. And then that's just who we are.
Darren or Helen or any of the actors that we currently have, other than just like unique performance, change your perception of the characters in it?
Oh, I think always.
Yeah.
I mean, in the sense that they're really creating their own characters. I mean, you know, the script is a blueprint. You know, we kill ourselves trying to get every word, every beat right. But then at the end of the day, it's completely reinvented when the actor embodies it and makes their own psychological and intentional and dramatic choices.
Yeah, and then chemistry just between two of them can create like kind of unique dynamic that we didn't really necessarily think of first.
It's like your metaphor about how helper bots learn. They're programmed with certain emotions. Then they meet each other and somehow it explodes
Synergize
from
it.
300 emotions to 1,000. And then all these unforeseen, impossible to predict synaptic firings create something new.
Because that's what human connections are like.
Yeah.
The nominees for Best Book of a Musical are Maybe Happy Ending, Will Aronson and Hugh Park. The nominees for Best Original Score, Maybe Happy Ending, Will Aronson and Hugh Park.